So, welcome everybody for our Cosmic Library deep dive. Today, we're going to have a lot of fun exploring a few topics, primarily exploring a little bit more about Rasha body. Rasha body, as we talk about it, is one of the core foundations for the Flame Holders group, and there's a lot of layers to it. So, we're going to start to explore what are the layers or what are some of the different aspects of the Rasha body in its multiple forms. We're going to look at this through a bit more of a connection to what is our Kathara. So when we think of our Kathara body or our 12 tree grid of life, our 12 spheres, we are seeing this as a Kathara body, but we're going to actually get to see how this plays out into different spectra as far as Kathara, the Kantarians, and the Kathari, which are the Kathari or the Kathara beings. So as we get to look at some of this, we're going to look at a little bit of the different manifestations as well as how it moves into how we basically move through hub worlds. So all of these topics we talk about are going to tie it together a little bit in our exploration today, because as we connect to hubs, hubs are stationary, but they open us up like a platform into other worlds. And as we get to look at this, there is going to be a little bit of a tie-in to the Michael Mary turnstile. If you see this through some of the grid perspectives of some of the reversals through the checkerboard mutation that has taken place, why was the Mary or the Michael Mary turnstile so detrimental? It was actually playing on these hubs. So I'm going to use a visualization for you guys as we get to play with this, because if you've ever been on a ride, kind of like the teacups, maybe at Disneyland, these spinning rides where they spin, but they're all on their own little circular platforms. So each of them are kind of doing these dance with each other. This is really, in a lot of ways, how our cosmos is working through what is known as our larger cosmic clock. That all of these different realms, dimensions, and smaller systems are all kind of dancing with each other, kind of like square dancing, even if you want, or some kind of special dance that moves kind of very quickly in more of a larger pattern, and the patterns can get bigger and bigger. And each of these are kind of held by these stationary points called hubs. And the hubs are the places where we can actually have passage from one realm to another. And so if you kind of can take that thought, you can use that through the grid working page as you look at all the different maps of the hubs and the hub zones that are overlaid over planet Earth. We're going to see why these have been so highly targeted, because as we look at this, if we were to break it into micro and macro, this all has to do with our star fire cycles. And what our star fire cycles are our births into creation, and then the end of a star fire cycle, and our death and our return back into eternal God source. And that we're not really dying, it's just that we drop the matter forms as we move back into our cosmic body, our original star that we are. That as we birth out into creation, we birth out and we go boom, 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 and we can drop down, 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 down into denser and denser crystallized form or matter. And that once we get in there, our goal is to then do the return cycle or the Adashi return cycle back home with all of our quanta and basically all of our memories and experiences that we've had. But as we know that we are in a creation that has a lot of distortion in it, where there has been a lot of basically manipulation from the inside of these worlds that has been siphoning star beings for energy. And so many times we get caught in these little tide pools or whirlpools within creation where our star doesn't make its way back out because we're stuck in these little Metatronic cube systems that spiral us like a vortex just into multiple and multiple reincarnational cycles. So as we get to think about this, we get to realize there is an aspect of us that is meant to have a particular number of incarnations within creation, as then we make our return cycle back home. But there is what is known as kind of recycling reincarnations as a secondary type of incarnation. And those are when our soul or our quanta gets captured in these cube systems, such as the lunar kind of bases and the Saturn bases and the Pluto bases. And as our quanta gets trapped within these cube systems, then basically our soul can keep getting recycled within the holographic false reality. So in some ways, our true eternal source has a set number of incarnations, yet we can have hundreds, if not thousands, of reincarnational memories within a system based on false holographic realities, where we're kind of recycled back in over and over and over again. So part of what we are looking at today is, why is it so important for us to know about our Rasha body? That our Rasha body is going to be one of the key factors that gives us our access points to our core domain worlds and our return cycles back home. So we're going to go on a little bit of a heady journey and let's just have some fun as we dive into this. So as we start to think of this, let's go ahead and first start to look at the concept of these God worlds and these different realms where we may exist. This is coming from page 102 in the Dance for Life book. You can go ahead and pull this up. I'm actually going to show it to you from another book as well. And as we get to look at this, this is the creation of the God worlds, and that the God's house of many mansions. This is the passage codes and DNA activation. We exist over here within this 12 sphere, or this 12 tree grid of life. We exist within what is referred to as the 7 lower heavens. We are in the furthest down creation. We're in the most crystallized light fields of creation. And as we are kind of crystallized within these forms, it can make us feel that this reality is very real, or that we can feel very stuck, because light really at its truest nature wants to be more of a vaporous plasma form, where it is free, where it is shape-shifting, where it has the ability to be pure fields of consciousness. And so many times when we are in this density, in this reality, it can feel very stuck, because we are limited into how much of the fluidity of our consciousness that we can hold within this reality. We're not going to dive too much into these structures, but we're going to see graphs of how these Veka worlds, so we live in something referred to as a Veka world. And many of us may have heard the term Eka Veka. Well, an Eka Veka system is going to be the next structure up, which incorporates not only the 7 lower heavens and the 7 higher heavens, but also the inner God worlds. There are inner God worlds, middle God worlds, higher God worlds, and then there's the primal God seed core worlds. They go by really fancy terms, but basically everything just kind of has a different suffix or ending at the end of the same. You can see this is Veka that moves to Eka, and then it's basically Eka, 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 but it's Ekasha, Ekasha A, and then Ekasha. So each of these is basically coming from what we refer to as the Eka, which an Eka Veka is going to actually be part of something even bigger called the Ekasha. Now, I know we all know the term Akasha. The akasha is one of the core symbols that we work with all the time, and that akasha god seed symbol really is coming from the middle god worlds, or the middle domain worlds. So you'll hear me say a lot of times, especially when we're setting up space, that we're moving past the middle domain worlds and even the higher domain worlds, where we want to primarily always be connecting to the core worlds. Well, we're going to kind of get to explore what is that? What are these core worlds that we're a part of? That also, when we create what we call our 48 dimensional shield, we can see that the core domain worlds, they don't work in dimensional spheres that go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 like ours does. They go in quantas of 4, and therefore they go all the way up to the 48. And when we work with our 48 dimensional shield, which is this emerald shield, we are truly working with the energies that come from our core world. So as we work with the core worlds, I do want to start to invite a relationship or an invitation to start to become aware of a particular race line of beings. Now, as we work with a lot of these materials, we're already working with information that is actually far beyond even some of these, but it's important for us to know our stair step energies. So part of our stair step, as we start to work with these energies of the core worlds, we want to recognize that as we work with the higher God worlds and even the Akasha, well, the higher God worlds is going to be kind of that connection to the Unisai, to the yanas, if you will. And the yanas, which really have that emanation that gives that energy down to, say, the Elohai, the Seraphi, and the Braharama. When we talk about those Trinity flames that start to create, what are they part of? They're part of the Akasha, the God seed, right? So we can think that as they're really emanating in from these fields, that the Elohai, the Seraphi, and this Braharama energy then starts to step down into what we would refer to as the Seraphim, the Elohim. That these beings, even as they step down creation, that they start to be the emanating kind of stabilizers or guardians within this field. And we know those stories have gone every which way. We know that all of these guardian templates of created beings, that especially when it comes to the Elohim aspect of them and the seraphim aspect of them, that they all have great levels of fall within them. So we know that in the Veka worlds, there is mass polarity and fall that actually even starts to move into the inner God worlds. But as we start to move up into the middle God worlds, to the higher and especially to the core God worlds, we move further and further and further away from any polarized states of creation. That the middle domain worlds alone are actually quite powerful to connect to, because they start to actually move you into more pure consciousness streams and fields. And when we start to connect to these councils, they're the ones that help us start to actually connect to the core domain worlds. So one of the race lines that I want to actually kind of give you a connection to, that you may have seen this word many, many times in a lot of the things that we have done, as far as zones, as far as some of the chelantic activations, especially when you do the Crystal River prayer. This is actually going to be in there, and these are the race lines of the Ha'aturs. And, or it's, I keep saying Ha'aturs, but it's basically the Ha is long, Ha'aturs. And the Ha'aturs are amazing. These, if I'm just going to cut to the chase within them, they're coming as basically a command or a council that actually is stepping down. They are pure energy beings. But when they do step down and shape shift their plasma, if you will, into a form, they choose the feline form. And within this, these are the progenitors of the Elohai. So basically, when we think of the Elohai, even stemming from the Yanas, from these God worlds, that the Elohai are actually the children of a completely other race line of beings. And they have such a level of consciousness that is really so high in frequency that many times when we start to connect to them, it takes a level of us starting to prepare our body to receive a connection to them. Otherwise, it can start to short out some of our nervous system, our electrical system. It can start to feel like hot flashes working with them because they do work at a pretty high level as far as energy. But they are absolutely amazing. I would invite each and every one of you that even as you start to work with the womb chakra work, if you're doing any of the mantras or energies, there is eventually a mantra that I will share with you that is a vibrational energy of when you focus on it, it draws things closer to you. It actually helps you stabilize a focal point on something in order to draw it closer to you. And so when you work with any of these kinds of energies, one of the most amazing race lines to connect to is one of our basically our cedar races. And actually this is beyond cedar races. These are basically the cedar races for the Elohai, which we are such a far step down from, even in our Terranusium body, that we would recognize these as basically one of the cedar races that manifested the Elohai as a guardian race line for created wombs or worlds. They do tend to move more in, again, in a feline form. They can take on multiple colors, but one of their favorite colors to take is just a white form or a white being. As we know, Ilesa Ma and her purest energy comes through as a pearlescent white. So a lot of times the closer we get to the pure flame or the pure core of a star, the whiter or pearlescent it gets. Now within here, this is a mantra that you will maybe now see in some of the things and go like, oh, that's what that is. This is actually a mantra, if you will, or a son. This is going to be something that is beyond the Anuhazi language. This is going to be primarily more moving more into what we would think as the Andromedan. So the Andromedan would be the aqueous matrix, so more of an aqueous language, or maybe moving into an Alhambra language, which is actually moving more into a Cosmea or a Cosmaya language. And it would be Ve Yon Kumna Aujwen Hatur. Veyon kum na aujwen hatur. Veyon kum na aujwen hatur. So I want to just kind of put this in within here. I love this image. This is something that one of them drew, and I think they were making shirts out of this. But you can see it's actually these god. The eyes even have multiplicities of these ekashas within them. I love that. It's akasha within akasha within akasha within akasha. So it's all the seeds you could think of within creation. I love that they wrote the word alien in here. We're all extraterrestrials. We are all alien to this Vecca system that we live in. And as we recognize this, I know it's a little tricky to read, but from ALIEN, it's aware, loving, invincible, uh, enigmatic, and noble. So these are basically 5 qualities that they hold. And the reason why I want to bring forth the information of the Hathors is because they're the primary holders of the wisdom that allows us to really start working with the 5 crystal cathedrals and all of those virtues within them that work with all of the different benders races, the different crystalline elemental or the plasma vaporous elemental race lines and beings that are helping us to acclimate into those energies. So I just wanted to start with that very quickly as you get an opportunity to just kind of start to get curious about this energy or this word of the Ha Tours. And I will bring up a little bit more information as to Our awareness that when we think of the Hathors, obviously the closest word we're going to think of within our creation is Hathor. Hathor, the Hathor, the Temple of Dendra, the energy of the Hathors, plural, because they are a race line of beings. And I will just say the Hathors themselves are actually part of the genetics of the Hathors. Absolutely. The Hathors have a quanta of their genetics which birthed this new creation of the Hathors, but the Hathors are a creation primarily within this 15-dimensional time matrix that was created very much like the Orifeme was created, very much like the Indigo races created and the Terranusiums were created, the Hathors were created. And the Hathors were created from a mixing of the Haturs, so they're going to have even a higher octave of the Elohai wisdom, right? But as they were genetically created, they were basically blended with the Anu Elohim. Well, what is the Anu Elohim is going to be the basically the progenitor energies that later kind of started to do experimentation and created the Anu Naki. And so the Anunnaki are a far, far down race line of beings that has basically angelic codes trapped within it. And the Hathors were created as a race line to basically guide, assist, and to help the many fallen or digressed lineage lines to basically reinstate or recorrect their angelic codes within them and to get out of the false systems. Now, as an entire race line, through Ashiana Dean's perspective, and I'm going to give you my perspective. Through Ashiana Dean's perspective, or Ayasha Ashiana's perspective, she says that the Hathors are they have gone through so much distortion within this time matrix that their codes are in fall. And I've meditated on this a lot as we've kind of looked at this. And I'll come back to these documents because I want to actually talk about this. This is really important. So there are particular races that go into fall. And what that means is that through their experience in creation, they have gone through too much too much of the experience within here, and missing codes have gotten into their template, and there isn't a repairable way for that body to actually make it through star fire return again as an entire race or as an entire body. So as I've meditated on this, because I do have a lot of connection to the Hathors, so it makes sense having a huge connection to the Hathors as their information started to come through. And as I really started to connect into this, there is an awareness that their consciousness is not lost, but their race is not a race that's going to make it out of a fall. So that species, as a species that was kind of manifested in creation, is going to go into an extinction cycle. Just like we've had species on this planet, they didn't have enough propagation, stuff happened, and we think of those as extinct species. The Hathors in this 15-dimensional time matrix and their body, that species is not going to progress out of this system. And here's to be fair, it was created for a particular purpose. But the consciousness that is embedded within it, in the Hathors, even though they do hold both codings of the ability of the Christos template as well as the Anu, fallen Anu, lineage connections within there. They have all of that within there. So what are they doing right now? Because many of you actually have connections to the Hathors. Many of you have been attracted to going to Egypt, the Temple of Dendra. You have a great love in your heart for Sekhmet. You have a great love in your heart for some of those divine feminine temples within these places that are on these land areas. Even if you go in towards like Gobekli Tepe and areas like this, you're going to find some of these very sacred temples kind of corresponding or correlating, and these are the divine priestess lineages. Well, the Hathors are not a fallen in consciousness race line, and in fact, they still fully follow the Christos path. And one of their greatest gifts right now is actually that in fall systems, they have the ability, because they are portal masters, they have the ability to actually create these bubble worlds in fall systems, so that if there are species that are going extinct, that they can help create these portal or these bubble systems for them. It's kind of like realizing, okay, even in a fall system, maybe it's a fallen aspect of the Wizadek system or Wizadak system or one of these systems, right? They can actually go into the template of the womb of that creation, and they can create a bubble world within it that is completely untouched by the rest of the fall system. And then those that are going into fall or extinction as a species, they can help create these bubble worlds for them, so that as their species dies out, they can still live a christic aligned path, even though they are fully aware that they're a dying race. It's really amazing to understand this, because we want to recognize that there are so many loving races that if you have even a drop of Christic blood within you, which I know all of you guys do, more than a drop, that if you even have a drop of Christic blood, it immediately imparts an energy within you that you would do anything for someone that's choosing the Christ path. Anything. Even at the sacrifice of our own race line, which is in some ways the Hathors kind of gives us that impression of, they know, and they could literally have chosen something else. They could have probably saved themselves from that particular path. They probably could have done all kinds of things, but there's a recognition that that's not what they were created for. That's not what they were designed for. So in so many ways, that's the Hathors that have stepped down and with so much love opened up a way for even those that are in fall to actually have the last of their experience in creation to be within Christic alignment, so that as the bodies drop, here's the thing, and here's where I have meditated. I don't have anything to look up to, like, to prove to you any of this. This is all from my own experience and my own meditation, and from talking with the energies of the consciousness of the Hathors and even the Hathors as they're coming through, is that they keep saying it like this, that the species is going extinct, but the consciousness is never lost in creation. And that the Hathors aren't, even if they're in a fall, their consciousness still has the ability to return back to the source fields. It's just, it's not going to be in what we would think of as this full body form. Well, a lot of us are on that very same path, you guys. Very few of us, and I'm not even going to say us, because I know I'm one of the ones that's in the trenches. I know I'm one of the ones that is here to work with a lot of the souls that are in the lower realms. And so for all of my star family, that you deal with entities, that you deal with the spirits, the fractured souls, the shadow dancers, all of these energies as ways to create these Bardo chambers. These are the trenches, right? These are the deepest places within creation where it can seem pretty dismal, but there's something in your heart that feels a compassion for them. I can't, I, there's just, it makes me even emotional right now. There's an entire feeling that overruns me that I could not imagine just saying, oh, they don't matter. because I don't, it's just, you know it if that's part of your path. And when you can feel that, you can recognize that's the Christos energy within us. We never will leave anyone behind if they are choosing the Christ path, even if it's at the detriment of we lose every aspect of our identity and we come back as space dust. It's worth it because we always know we'll go back as entire source, even if we go back with literally no memories. There's a part of us that says, it's okay. It's so worth it if that could be the way that source can return back to itself. So as we think of this, the death process, how we die, is a huge part of it. And the Hathors, I don't know how many of you guys, have memories of these kind of Hathor's initiations, the initiations within the temples, the dark rooms, the near death experience, the induced death experiences that help people know how to leave the body. And that not only that, it's the learning of how to separate the ka from the ba repeatedly in order for us to know starfire return and where we're going. These are the ancient teachings. The ancient teachings always were really these Rasha body teachings. So let's dive into a little bit more. I've said the word Rasha so many times. Let's dive in a little bit more right in here with Rasha. So when we think of the term Rasha, we are going to be looking at a portion of our body. And let me just see where I'm at here with some of these. And let me do it through here. This is actually a pretty cool document. Um, and this is coming from actually the one of the Crystal River. This is actually some of the, I think the initial times where Ashiana was starting to bring in the Crystal River information, the Crystal River spiral, the Crystal River energy. And this was coming around 2007. So this looks like it's a document from May 2007. And this was the one of the grid work trips they did to Peru. So this was one of their Peru workshops. Talking about this. Now, when we see the energy of spanners, you'll hear me refer to something called the 12 tribes. That was another conference I think that was done right before this one. And the 12 tribes was really the inception of starting to teach about the Rasha body and the death cycle, how to move through Bardo, how to transition out of the body. Well, so these are life-born cycles. Well, life-born cycles aren't just us going into a body and out of our body. This is literally the Partike, the Partikai, and the Partikam. That as we think about these vibrational energies, the Partike, the Partikai, and the Partikam are the vibration of us starting to move as the pure mother, the pure womb, the pure void, the pure Manu, when you think of it. And I do highly recommend for all of you, if you haven't downloaded this or working with this, is the Dance for Life book. It's probably one of the best ones that has a accumulation of a lot of these topics that we talk about. And as we talk about these, I'm just going to keep talking while I see if I can find the page in here so I don't have to scroll you through all of it. Is that we recognize from the God worlds and this Manu spark that the spark goes out. So I'm going to look for page 20 over here for you guys. Let me see if I can show you an image. This is probably one of the most common topics. I know Ashiana in her teachings, she literally spent like forever going over the mechanics of creation and how we emerge for the Partikai, the Partikam, and the Partike over here. So the Partiki, if we look at it here, is going to be the antimatter. This is the void. This is going to be the Manu. And as it expressed out, it goes out dually into two forms simultaneously. One is going to have an electric, one is going to have a magnetic. One is going to spin way faster, which is the Partike or the Partica here, Partica. And this antimatter is basically going to be more of the electric, and it moves very, very fast. It moves at a much faster, almost a future timeline, and it's very much associated with our parallel Earth. Okay. Now, when we think of the particum, which is going to be the matter or the mother or the magnetic energy, that as both of these spin out, they go in a dance together, they kind of bounce off of each other, and then at a particular point, they touch, and then they go whoosh, and they spin back up. And you can see the arrows go right back up, and they go back to where they started from. Now, when they go out, there's a ever expanding kind of fractal that is happening from this. And fractal is probably not the right word, but it's basically holographic, if you will, that when the partiki goes out into creation, and it replicates itself, it duplicates itself, but it duplicates itself as basically two. One pops, and immediately after that, the other is born of it. They experience itself in creation, and then they are going to duplicate themselves and then return back up. So there's always a new world that gets created from every out breath and every in breath. Every out breath, boom, new world created, back into 0 point. Out breath, new world created. And these are where you sometimes see, when you see kind of like Brahma dreaming, um or sorry, Vishnu dreaming, and you see all those bubbles everywhere in creation. There's worlds after worlds after worlds after worlds. So we would think of these as basically the ways that then morphogenetic fields, standing scalar grids are created, and basically these womb worlds, or these holding templates, that's all the mother is. It's all basically these light grids, these standing morphogenetic grids, which are scalar, standing scalar wave grids. Scalar waves are they're always kind of they're not moving, they're reverberating. That's what they're doing, and as they reverberate within certain ways, they can hold form or pattern or shape. And so this is actually how, if we think about this, this is how the bubbles get created. This is how Barbello would have created a womb world or a separate dream world. You can think of these standing scalar waves and these morphogenetic fields as how dream worlds are created, new dreams are created. And then whatever you think into that dream creates the reverberation onto the standing scalar waves, which crystallizes the form to manifest that dream. And that is why our thoughts are so important and powerful. And that is why the Metatronic lens wants to target our brain and what we think about, because they are hijacking our thinking into creating their standing morphogenetic fields. So they're hijacking our dream abilities to manifest their dreams. And this is why we are retaking our dreams back into creation. So that's just a concept if we start to think about this. Now, when we think about the Rasha body, these are again a representation of these cycles. So now let me come over here, and it's going to say the Partike body, the 5 element planes, and the prana seed, and the Rasha body, the Amaraya Rasha body. The first thing I want to show right here is this is no different than the womb chakra work that we're doing, you guys. So different language, different concept. We can think of it as womb chakra work is chanting to Shakti or Shiva, or some aspect of these deities within there, but we're really connecting to the womb and the morphogenetic fields and pattern templates. So by saying the mantras, you're resetting these morphogenetic standing scalar waves. Well, what are they saying the Partike body is made of? The 5 elemental planes. That's exactly what the womb chakra says. When Sri Kalishwar talks about it, he says, if you really want to access the womb chakra, you have to realize that the divine cosmic mother is, her body is the 5 elements, though they are her. She is expressing herself as these 5 elements, but they are her in these different expressions, and all of them dance in a particular way in order to maintain creation as these different bodies. Now, we're also going to have these things as something called permanent seed atoms. You can see this as prana seed, permanent seed atom. Just keep that in mind. Let me just give this to you really quick. Permanent seed atom. This is the spark that emits down into creation through the eighth stargate, which is the higher heart by the thymus. So when you think of that higher heart, it's that energy that's right below the thymus, or we think of this as the azure ray. This azure, yeah, azure, we would think of that as, oh, it's a different kind of word for blue. Well, the azure is this energy at the base of your higher heart, and it's where your permanent seed atom sits. So just keep that in mind, because everything in the star fire or Adashi return, which Adashi return is just our bardo transition back to God's source, our movement through the stargates all the way back into oneness or the unity fields. And when we are our permanent seed atom at the base of our thymus, connected to the eighth chakra, which is connected to the metagalactic core, which is also Orion, the Orion system, the Orion Wars, the Metagalactic Wars, we can see that our heart and our permanent seed atom gets encrusted or trapped within this reality through all the heartache and the pain and the sadness. And so it's very interesting that you're going to see this word a lot, amore, because there is a huge, there are fields, and these are fields that go by amorea or amore. These are basically on a certain spectrum. They are basically the manifestation of this energy we call love. These love fields. Well, these love fields are actually the lowest expression, but it's our highest expression before we merge completely with God's source. And that's why love is the most powerful energy that we really attune to. But we've also had wisdom that has been shared with us that says love alone won't do it. Love with directed consciousness is what we need. So this is really powerful. Now, as we get in through here, we keep seeing this word Rasha, 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 Rasha. So we're going to see that the Rasha body, it's part of the Christ-born cycle. So it is, again, just Adashi. You hear me say that word, Adashi return. The Adashi is one of the race lines that we are connected to. And this is how we become a Christar or a Rasha, sorry, Son of God body. So this is part of, I'm tying in a bunch of terms for you guys. I know this can sound a little bit confusing, but I want to tie in a bunch of terms so that they make sense. What we're realizing is we are Christ born. As a Christ born, we are on a cycle. That cycle moves through basically something that is so minute and small, like the Big Bang, but it's like that whole expression of energy that's happening within our atom of our body through this part of Chi, this part of K, and this part of Cum. And as this energy is, it's always in this return cycle back home. As this return cycle is moving back home, we are moving through what is basically Christar Ratiaes, or realizing we are Christar Ratias, and the Rasha is connected to the Rasha Rishis, which means we are sons of God. We are sons. This is where we do the Ishura Eru Umeta. Ishura Eru Umeta. I am the sacred son. I am the sacred son. We're saying that not just because it sounds really pretty, because it kind of does sound pretty cool to be like, hey, I'm a sacred son. But what we're doing is we're acknowledging ourselves as a Christ born and a Christar being that holds the vibration within us to have the access through the Rasha or the Rishi Rasha. There's a lot of confusing terms in here, and I'll do my best to explain some of these. And these are all going to be, again, expansion and contraction. So contraction and expansion, as it said right here, of the core Rasha then moves into the inner Rasha of the core Rasha, the inner Rasha, the core Rasha, the inner Rasha La. So Rasha La, small a sound, the middle Rasha Li, long E valve, Rasha Li, and outer Rasha Le. Begins at the starfire point and then creates the Resha A. Okay, so our Rasha body actually has multiple parts to it, and they're like layers, like your cell inside your body has multiple layers. They have layers, and they all together start to manifest and create this energy of the Resha. So let's kind of play a little bit more with some of this. And I'm gonna actually flip this image. This is really rough, and I apologize, you guys. I wasn't able to find a cleaner chart for this for you guys to see, but you'll get the idea. And it's also kind of neat to see Ashiana's handwriting as she's gone through this work. This is her initial chart kind of work that she does as she goes through these processes and gets the downloads. So if you can see the circular energy here, you're going to see basically this is going to be our starfire body. And as we're looking at this, this is all about the crystal return. You can see this even in here, the aquafarian. The aquafarian energy, basically starfire return, is always going to connect us back to the Andromedan mother galaxy. Now I'm going to slightly decipher. I am not I am continuously expanding as the guardians take me through this information, but I want to start to share it in this way. As we go through these return cycles, we can see it's moving through the Rasha Lay activation. So as we're moving through the Rasha Lay activations, it's going from 5, 6 to 7. So it goes from Rasha Lay to Rasha Li to Rasha La. Okay, so the core, the inner, and the middle. And as we go into this, one of the key things to recognize within here that as we get into the Rasha Law, this is basically taking us into the core. Well, it's saying core Taurin here. Core Taurin, or the seed rebirth. Well, the core Taurin, and I'll see if I can find it in here, but basically the core Taurin, I think it's in this next slide. The core Taurin, come on, PDF, work with me. The core Taurin energy actually starts to move us into what is the core of the earth. And let me flip this one more time. And I do apologize. These are really rough images to look at. But if you can now start to get this energy of here is the core. So our Rasha body in all of its different forms. And it isn't going to be super, super important for us to know, okay, Rasha Li, Rasha Le, Rasha La, Rasha, as we start to say all of these terms, what we're just recognizing is they're different versions of the same thing in just different spans or just different rings of creation. So as we go into the inner layers, here we start to get the cosmic sound tones within here. But as you get into this, this is also going to be referred to, see if I can find it on here. I might not find it, so I'm just going to say what it is basically like the crystalline core of the earth. There's a crystalline core of the earth. So the earth's crystalline core is going to hold the highest level of this Rasha body in one of its layers. Well, that means our atoms in our body are also going to hold at that core spark. That starfire spark is going to be where we find that core layer, that we actually have all the layers of the different layers of the Rasha body within us. We have to get to them to activate them and to work within them. So even as we start to work at this, obviously we're not going to see what all these sound tones are that go all the way down, but we can see within the inner layers, you got ta, ma, and ka. So as we see these sound tones, these are like the seed bijas. When you look at the womb chakra yantra, on the petals is all of the bijas or the seed sounds that create everything. This is the exact same thing in just a different image and a different picture. Some of the words are the same, some of the words are different, but just to understand, as we see here, we got ta, ma, ka from 7, 8, and 9. So as you look at it, now as it starts to express out, you got ma, ta, ka, ma, ra, ka, sha, ra, la, sha, ka, la, ta, ka, ra, ta, and Oriea. So within here, this is where we start to get the things like ka, tha, ra, and ma, ha, rata, where we start to get basically the sound tones that start to create Kathara grids. And you can see the bands go out in this way. So one of these is also to recognize they are connecting into the elemental domains. And as they work within the elemental domains, this is why we want to work with the elementals, because they actually start to awaken certain sound tones within us and also particular virtues. So as we get to see this, let's actually look at this from a completely different perspective. And the first thing I want to do is actually bring us into, from the Ascension Glossary place, what is the Rasha body? So the Rasha body, if you were to look up Rasha body, you can see it right here, redirected from Rasha body. If you look up Rasha body on the Ascension Glossary, it's going to take you to this term right here, dark matter template. The dark matter template is our blueprint. So our entire sets that are comprising our Rasha through all of these Rasha levels is basically all the different levels of our blueprint. Well, what is the blueprint again? The blueprint is that energy that comes from the Manu, or the Partakai, that is that vibration that starts to put and manifest into creation the blueprints for the standing scalar waves, which are the morphogenetic fields and patterns of creation. The dark matter template, which is the blueprint on which the eternal source particle atoms and molecules are built in order to generate layers of eternal light. This is actually a type of matter body and is fully merged with the eternal spirit substance. Now, our dark matter template is actually going to be connected really to the dimensions of 16, 17, and 18. And when we think of that, this is really kind of an interlayer, an interface into the seven higher heavens as we start to connect into this, because it's where our spirit body exists outside of dense crystallized form. Think of the dark matter template is really where the blueprint is impressioned by the thought or the consciousness fields. But these are the consciousness fields of the yanas. These are the consciousness fields of, say, the Elasa Melchizedek streams. These are the consciousness fields that come from the core God worlds. And as these consciousness fields step down, they manifest basically replications of creation into denser and denser or more and more crystallized form, until we get down here where we can touch a tree and it feels so real how hard and how solid it is. But at the core, we really do know it's just standing scalar waves that is emanating at that density, and we can experience it as a density here, but it's really not that if we get really into it. So we want to think about that as ourselves. This dark matter template, as we work with it, it starts to work basically through this inception in this creation. And let me see if I can find the term that I wanted to look at here, right here. Yes, the dark matter template body, or Rasha body, is the area that governs function over our matter body, merging with the eternal source layers of our higher consciousness bodies. So our Rasha body gives direct instruction sets to our atoms within our body, our molecules within our body, our template. It's really the energy in the birth of our womb chakra that says, what is that fetus going to turn into? The instruction sets are coming from in the core of it, or the seed of it. And then as it expresses out, where it embeds within us is going to be that permanent seed atom at the bottom of our thymus gland. And that from there, our consciousness merges into whatever form we decided to experience from this Rasha body template as an expression of our consciousness in reality. Now, as we think of this, there's the Rasha body within here. We're going to see that it's very much one of the most highly targeted energies because it's connected to our atoms, our molecules. So when we see excuse me, this energy of it, it is primarily since it's the programmed template, you can see that the dark matter template is really what got hijacked by a lot of the negative alien agendas, and really kind of more from the phantom realms, that they went into this layer to embed into that instruction set within us that keeps us in anti-life cycles. Anti-life cycles are going to mean that we can't attune to our true Adashi Starfire return. We can't maintain our consciousness and these things. So let's just dive into a couple of other things as we play with this, because as we're working with building all of these, excuse me, what we're doing is we're starting to clean out the dark matter template within us. How are we doing that? We're doing that by singing the sound tones, singing the sound tones of creation. As we sing these sound tones, which again could be these very sound tones that you see right here, the ta ma ka, ra sha la, right here, Rasha la, Kathara. It's so amazing, you guys. It all kind of starts to pop as you start to kind of see it. So our Rasha la body kind of steps down and into creation here. Kathara, we see that right in here. As we see these vibrational energies, when you sing the sound tones, they're not just words, they're actually reverberating energy into the standing scalar fields that have an association to a color, they have association to a particular blueprint or template or vibration that starts to reset the cymatics, if you will, within our body template. And that's how we start to purge out. Well, the raw sound tones, RA, the raw sound tones, which you can see coming from the 15th dimension, and we're going to start to move into what is this Kathara right here. The raw sound tones are going to be connected to the father template. So think of father as structure. Well, what is structure? It's our bones. It's going to be into the crystalline blood within our body. It's going to be the fascia within our body. So this is why we're doing a lot of work to reset our Rasha body, and we're also doing a lot of work to reset through the Hara line, which corrects the raw vibrations. And one of the things the raw vibrations are resetting within us is all the places where the seraphim or the gold lineage lines, the gold ray energies, got hijacked. And the gold ray again is connected to the star system of Vega, or that fall, that cataclysm, the war, the Lyran war, connected to this 10th Stargate. Well, the 10th Stargate is also what starts to superimpose an energy on us. The 10th Stargate is connected to something that basically is the interfacing. The 10th Stargate is really important because it's our entrance into our avatar God self. It's our entrance into our Christed avatar God self. And if we can't merge with that level of consciousness, then we are completely always within this limited way of dreaming or thinking. So there's something called the Shahara complex. And you can see that Shah and then Ha is kind of in there, and Ra is in there, which the Hara is our Hara line, and the Shahara complex actually sits at our 10th energy center, and it's connected to the 10th Stargate. So again, that's going to be Vega, that's going to be Pluto, and that's going to be the wars that are happening in Iran and Iraq right now, and those battles over those Stargates. Well, why are they so important? Well, if you start to get cut off from that energy, you're really starting to get cut off from your Kathara. What is your Kathara? Let's play with this one for a little bit. Um, as we start to look at what is our Kathara is basically our blueprint, our body template within this creation. Now let's actually step into the eucharistic body. And we are going to play with this in a couple of different things. So first take the sound tone of U, and then there's the sound tone ka. And then if this wasn't christic, it would be ka ra. It'd be crit, like ra, ka ra. So ka ristic, ka tha ra. So our eucharistic body is basically creating our Christ body, our entire Kathara body. But you can see that it's also connected to something called the dark matter template. She replicates it over here, that this is where our aurora, our beloved aurora, so our future earth timelines, are fully Christed templates, bodies that were not ever in fall, are actually connected to our eucharistic. Our eucharistic body is called that sacred energy. Even in the Gnostic teachings, you'll see the eucharistic body as something that's very, very significant as far as an awakening within there. And let me see, I do have a little bit of it in here. This is something from the Kathara teaching system in the Kathara books. This planetary karmic imprint has kept Earth species genetically bound into repeating cycles of finite. So we're just kind of cutting in on a conversation here. That we have been in this karmic imprint here. We've been stuck in these like these repeating cycles. Repeating cycles are not natural. They are not what we're supposed to be in, where this is what starts to create the idea of reincarnation, many, many, many lifetimes, is these repeating cycles. Well, every time we go through a repeating cycle, it de-evolves a quantum of our spark or our evolution. It's kind of like making a copy and making a copy and making a copy. Well, eventually the furthest copies aren't going to have the highest integrity as the original. So it's saying that it's limited evolutionary potential, creating disease, amnesic, so memory loss and anatomy functions, identity, and freedoms of the eternal life, eucharistic body, and its delible divine connection. So basically, all the things that have been keeping us stuck in here, which are, she refers to this as Shona. And just a quick translation of Shona. Shona is dead light. That in these pockets where the dark matter template or the Rasha body has been hijacked and spun into reversal. So the Metatronic energy has come in and lock phased the Merkaba so that it's not spinning in its correct two spheres of spinning, clockwise and counterclockwise. Instead, they fuse it together and then they make it spin in the same direction. And what it does is it starts to create miasmic energy or Shona or dead light energy. When that happens, we go into finite creation and we become a dying system. And it cuts us off from what is our eternal life eucharistic body. So within this, there is a bunch of other stuff I could have tapped into within here. Um, Again, it is connected to our Merkaba fields. It is connected to first activating our flame body and our crystal body. So that's why we actually, even though we're moving into already working with plasma body, we still do go into the activations of our flame body. We're building every single layer of our anatomy within here. So within here, not sure what I had within that one. We'll come back. We'll come back. So eucharistic body. I wanted to see if I could show you guys. Oh yeah, page 35, I think it is. Oh, that was this one. Yeah, here we go. Sorry. So when we start to talk about our eucharistic body, we are now starting to talk about something that animates or works with our Kathara. So I'm just going to invite you to really start seeing this. We're going to start to learn to kind of decipher and see how sometimes you have to kind of like look within the sound tones to see how they embed within each other. So Kathara. Kathara is going to be the same as Kathara. And let me just click over here really quick. And the Kathara is also going to be connected over here to the Katarians. Cantarians, so sometimes new letters get added, but it's coming from the same energy field. So the Cantarians are the Kathara right here. They are the Kathara Cantarian dragons. These are another race line of beings. These are another energy, but the Cantarians and the Kathara, when we really start to look with it, this is actually going to also start to connect us in to what do we have here? Catharis, or the Cathars, or the Kathara template holders, who also work with the solar rishi layers of the Rasha body creation of the cosmic mother, which is the body language called the Cathar or the Kathara. And in the Cathar body are multiple star languages containing the instruction set of the fire letters for embodiment of the eternal Christos Sophia template and the time code that is the universal mother's creation principle that is inherently coded into the planetary dark body or dark matter template. So I know this is a lot. Let me see if I can just kind of give you a little bit to translate. So the Cathars, the true Cathars, are actually an emanation from a race line of beings, and I don't have the document up for you guys to see this, where I am actually pulling it up from. Actually, let me pull it up. So 152 in the Dance for Life book. Let's go to page 152. And if we click down here, we're going to see 153, sorry, and 4. Here we go. We're going to see, and this is, I think, the only place in the book where it talks about this, we're going to see the word Kathari. The Kathari are actually a race line of beings. They're actually a race line of beings that are from beyond this 15-dimensional time matrix. So the Kathari are the originals. They are basically the template holders. They are the beings that really hold the templates in place for Katharas or creations. The Kathara, again, our 15-dimensional body, is held by this 12 tree sphere of life, this tree of life. This tree of life is the form holding template for this creation that is held within these fields. Now, they talk about the Cathari here because what happened to the Cathars or the Cathari? They were 100% targeted by these Luciferian covenant Anunnaki resistance beings. So this is why we think of the Cathar massacres and the annihilation of these sacred christic bloodlines. Well, why? These beings, what template were they really holding? The Cathari race lines actually were holding an ultimate connection, and we'll see it through. If you look at page 132 in the Dance for Life, you're going to see they held the vibration for the 12th Stargate. They were connected to the Southern France Stargate, which is the 12th Stargate. Why is the 12th Stargate so significant? That's where the massive battles and wars took place, even in our universal family tree. So in the wars of Lyra, the cradle of Lyra, that war, they were fighting to take over the 12th Stargate, because if they could overtake the 12th Stargate, they could start to get access to the core domain worlds. If they could get access to the core domain worlds, then they can start to take over multiple, like an infection, start to take over many creations. So just kind of as an understanding there, the Cathars are very much connected to the 12th tribe. You can see this within here. And you'll see it here. Kathara, there are the Cathars, the Kathara, the Katharis. These are the holders of the templates. So the Cathars were, and the Kathari, the true Christed ones, before they were overtaken by the fallen races and a false Cathar. They're most of the Cathars that we would know of on planet Earth were actually the uh, an imposter. Let's use the word imposter. They basically hijacked the Christed line. They basically created their own Templar race lines, and these are the fallen Templar, the Templar Anu. which it was taking the Cathar teachings and then they spun them and overtook them. Well, if we were to think of all of these energies, why are they doing this? And let me see, this is the Kathara. You know what? I don't think I'm going to get into that document today, and I'm going to collapse this one just to make a little bit more room within here. Well, they are wanting to take over the cathedrals, the Cathar, the cathedrals. We could see how cathedral is also going to start to kind of click into this vibrational energy. So I want to just start to bring the energy of the cathedrals and these sacred sites within. And let's go back to some of Lisa Renee's work as we look at this. So when we think of the Rasha body, the Rasha is the dark matter template. It is what was hijacked. It was what created the Akamoth, or the dark mother. So as we think of the Akamoth, or the dark mother, that is what started to create the anti-christic things like the Leviathan races within creation that started to attack the christic races, attack the Kathari, attack all of the blue ray lineages, and start to create the reversals within creation. Now, the Rasha body is part of something that is connected to something even bigger. All the elements of them together start to connect to something that is called the Rasha. And within here, the Rasha itself is the Rasha is a term that you'll see Lisa Renee uses quite a bit on in her works and what she shares. And the Rasha is, if you see this, we're looking at stuff still that's very connected to stuff that looks like cells within our body. And these are connected again to basically templates. The racial worlds are going to be something that is all the Rasha worlds, but kind of now creating a larger collective or a larger sphere of these energies. It feeds down this energy into our creation through something that is known as our diamond pillar. Well, our diamond pillar is basically our double diamond heart, our Christed heart. We activate our double diamond heart and our Christed heart, and we start to awaken. In order for that to happen, we have to have our cosmic clock in alignment. So now this starts to tie us into kind of a little bit of an understanding of why do they try to throw a planet off of its tilt? Why do they want to hijack certain of the things like the Michael Mary turnstiles and certain hub zones? Well, it's because each of those are actually parts of the energy currents that brings down these pillars, these Roosh pillars, these pillars of light from the God worlds that stabilize and feed the eternal light energy into a creation. And if they can overtake it, it puts the dance of creation out of sync. And so basically, now creation starts to fall out of its cosmic clock alignment to its stair step or its Adashi return cycles. And then we can't return home in the way that we wanted to. So now if we think of the racial worlds, and let's see if I can find it within here. But the racial worlds, I'll just read this first part right here, that the awareness of the universal rose breath, the spiral or the rosetta. So we know the rosetta is actually, we think of the Rosetta Stone, which is this translator or this light language really that we hold. It is really going to be kind of like a light language for our universal diamond pillar that we can connect to. And as we think of this vibrational energy, the Rosetta is also this rose breath. Well, the rose breath, if you look at it through, say, the Ascension glossary, she's going to use rose breath as an example. And I think in part, there is going to be reference to lotus, but this is going to be very similar to the lotus breath that you're going to read in the other materials, the Ashiana's materials. So in Ashiana's materials, you're going to see more of the word, the lotus breath, and say the six-pointed lotus breath, and these kinds of things. And these, just please know the rose and the lotus, not entirely interchangeable, but very closely interchangeable as we work with them. So Within this, we're working with different systems. And as the Rasha worlds start to connect, they start to connect to the Rishi Rasha. So they are solar Rishis. The solar Rasha are the direct Sophianic embodiments of the dark matter field that birth light seeds. What are Sophianic embodiments? These are our cosmic dragon mothers. The Christos Sophia, the Christos dragons, and the Taras. Well, think about Tara and Mari, Ma, Ta, Ra. These are all going to be the seed bijas or the seed sound tones of creation. And these are the cosmic birther mothers that are taking the seed sounds of the fields of creation and then birthing worlds through these sound tones. So Tara, even if you look in the Hindi perspectives and the Buddhic perspectives of the word Tara. The translation for Tara, even if you look, and I think it's in the Mahabharata, is where the Tara is actually referred to, and it is 100% translated as the shining stars or the stars. They are stars. So the Taras, the Buddhic Taras, are actually stars that come from the Buddhic realms. And those are whole other realms. There's actually a whole Bud system or Bud system or Buddha or Buddharic system. And within that, we'd have the Buddhalas and the Buddhramas and the Buddhayas that are in there. But it's also one of the systems in the Buddhic systems where we also have the Buddhara. So there's Buddhala and Buddhara. Buddhara is the one that's fallen. It is the Buddhara races that start to actually create a lot of the distortion in this reality. Now, as we think of these triple solar ratias, remember, these are the emergence of the cosmic mother Elesa sun as the cosmic dragon. They're really her daughters. They're the daughters of Elesa Ma, but they start to emerge out as these triple solar Rasha networks. And every Rasha network then replicates itself through Rasha or dark matter blueprints or templates. I'm hoping this is making a little bit of sense for you guys, because if you could just get the perspective that our Rasha body is our stair step and our doorway back to mother. If I could just put it that way, Rasha is our doorway back to mother, and it's our doorway back by going into the core of the blueprint of creation. So we are literally going inside of ourselves as a core star, as a solar being. And this is why they're asking us to do solar astrology now, not lunar astrology. And so as we connect to the emergence of this cosmic mother, so as we follow the Rasha template, we make our way back to our cosmic mother, Elesa. I don't know. Even just saying Elesa, I get so much love in my heart. I do. And then it's amazing, because if you have a resonance with Mother Mary or the Taras or the Buddhas or all of these energies of, even in the Hindi, maybe it's a Durga, maybe it's just these different expressions. You guys, this is what you're connecting to. You're connecting to these triple solar ratias. And these triple solar ratias, they basically, the daughters emerge out in these trinity fields, and they are parthenogenesis. They are self-replicating. They give birth to their own systems. So they're the daughters of Elesa, but yet they are our mothers. As we emerge from them, and they are part of all, because Elesa is connected to Melchizedek. They are all connected to the network of the universal Melchizedek logos, which is the logos is, think of it as the cosmic father energy. Well, what does the father energy do? It stabilizes it. It stabilizes the matter template. So the father energy is really meant to kind of be like the core kind of logos or wisdoms or law of one. divine law, the divine mechanics, the ascension mechanics of a system really is the logos of a system. And when that logos is held in veneration and upheld, then basically all that experiences within there in the womb of mother can be held in eternal living light. So we have systems that we are connected to, that another aspect of us, another part of our consciousness from the core star that we already exist in these pure eternal fields. And what we're doing is reconnecting our consciousness back to these fields so that we can begin to live that level of knowing here in a fallen, if you will, or a distorted dark matter template, so that we can be the dreamers, that we can embrace our cosmic father Melchizedek logos within our consciousness and project that dream and dream that dream with the divine Christos Sophia as we reset the template from the inside out. This is no different than sound or frequency or cymatic type of healing technologies. And this is why I think frequency technologies truly are where we are going to see our medical, our true Christos medical evolving into. And I will tell you, we actually do have Joseph has done this type of therapy for a very long time, which is the biofeedback system. He has one of the original, the SIO biofeedback machine, which is it works on the biofield. So it works through, it does have access to scalar energies, but it's actually working with the energetic templates. Now, one of the things I love about it, because it's like you can see it real time. We run that energy on our home. But the number one place that I see that it makes the biggest difference is we run those clearings and restoration, like basically resetting the field, and we do that for our puppy. Now I call him a puppy, but he's 17 years old. And when you run the biofeedback machine on him, he literally, you see it just like that. His entire energy goes and perks back up. He like starts running and playing and attacking us like a little puppy all over again. And it's amazing because the minute that he might start feeling the miasma and the density in his Rasha body from this reversal system, we can run that biofeedback machine on him. And it's just like night and day. And you just sit and go like, it's like you might not see what's happening, but you can definitely feel the effects on it because again, animals are such our greatest teachers. He can't fool us. Who he is who he is, and he's not going to try to be like, yeah, that was great, it helped. It's just, it literally, it makes such a difference for him. So it's amazing to think that that's what we are doing. Multiple ways that we are doing this is through doing our sound tones, our mantras, our yantras, our sounds, speaking the Anuhasi language, speaking the Aqueous, the Andromedan mother language, speaking the Alhambra languages that come from Ile Sama. As these come through, we begin to speak them. As we speak them, as we think them, as we align our consciousness or our Melchizedek logos back in alignment with the divine, we start to actually be the reverberation in our consciousness through that raw frequency or that gold ray, which they hijacked. The Metatronic energy primarily targeted the gold ray, and the gold ray directly affects our joints, our ligaments, our hips, our bones, our legs, all of these things. And so this is sometimes why we feel that ache and that pain during certain ascension points and also at different times as we are purging and clearing. So the solar Rasha, again, they are the direct Sophianic embodiments, okay? And as we connect to them, they connect us to free energy that comes from the 0 point. So when we connect to the dark matter template and we really be within this, another term we use a lot is the 0 point field. Well, the solar Rasha connect to the solar Rishi. So they are the divine Sophianic template that emerges from our cosmic Elisa sun, right? So they are the solar Rasha of the direct Sophianic templates. And then you have the solar Rishi. Now, the solar Rishi begins to connect us to that energy we talked about within Dubé. And I don't know if I have the link here. I might have to just type it in. So if I was to take us to the energy of the Rishi, um, let me just do it from this one over here, and then we would have the Rishi. So our Rishik sons are going to be connected to the Ursa Major energy. They are the masculine energy that then starts to step down through the seven stars in the Pleiades, which again, we talked about this in one of our last things, but you can see it here. The Rishik sons are the masculine principle, so it's bringing in our Melchizedek logos in, and it merges with our seven sisters in the Pleiades, which is our Taran Earth timeline and our Taran body. And as it starts to kind of merge within that energy, the seven sisters then reflects in our Sophianic mother principle. So it begins to rewrite the energy within here. So we have all of this step down of energy and it all working together. And as you start to understand that we incarnated in at different times, that the Cathars were basically, the Cathari were a race line. They were an extraterrestrial race line, we'll say, that emerged in. And what was their goal? They were the Cathars. They were the ones that held the Kathara body and basically the Templars. You'll see it. It's right here. The Christos Templars. Well, what is a Templar? A Templar is just a fancy word for template. And the template is just another kind of way of saying a blueprint, a template. What's the template that you're going to build off of that? Well, it's the template that's holding the earth body in place, that works through the ley lines, the sacred vortices, the grids. So now you can kind of see how this steps down into working with that grid working page and the different stargates and the different hubs and the different locations on the planet that we start to work with. Well, as all of these work within these layers, the Kathara, the Cathars or the Kathara are holding these outer sound tones. And I already collapsed that document, but that was that document that was handwritten, and it showed all those sound tones moving out in creation and kind of holding the energy of 13, 14, and 15 within there. They kind of correspond to fire letters. Excuse me. And when these fire letters start to work, this is another way that we do mantras. Think of mantras as a way that you're resetting your fire letters, your fire language as a fem, as an angelic. As you reset these fire letters, they hold the fire letters, and then they would work with them in something called round tables. Well, creation kind of moves in these spheres like a clock, like clockwork. And these round tables, and this is what kind of connects into the Arthurian, the Arthur and the round table kind of energy, and the hijacking of the Michael Mary turnstiles. Well, the Michael Mary turnstiles is going to be something, and I'm not going to do this one. So let me see if I can. Michael Mary right here, turnstile matrix. You can see it kind of moves as kind of this projected eye or sphere or wheel that was hijacking energies. And part of what it was doing is it was starting to hijack and basically pull energy off of the checkerboard mutation. The checkerboard mutation is basically like in the net or the grid of creation. They poked holes in it, like wormholes, black holes. They poked holes in the body of creation and it made it look like a checkerboard. And this is why the Masons have the checkerboard in their initiation rooms or their ceremony rooms or whatever. You see the checkerboard, it actually has a significance to it. And it's talking about this hijacking and this reversal network that's been feeding off of our planet. A lot of this has been resetting. But I wanted to give you an image so that you could look it up if you wanted to. So as we think of the Cathars and the light language, the Cathars basically worked in specific locales. And their purpose was to basically uphold hold basically pillar gate connection so that we always had the stream or the field of mother's energy coming through. The Cathars were always the ones that were maintaining the gates for Sophianic energy or the triple goddess Rasha energies to always emanate into the earth plane and feed. What does the Rasha or the Rasha or the Rishi, all of it, what is it doing? It is maintaining our connection to the 0 point field, and 0 point field is eternal energy. So the Cathars were maintaining the eternal energy streams to planet Earth. And well, energy is power. So they definitely hijacked this particular line, hijacking mother's coding right here. This is where you get the black magicians basically coming in and taking the ascension mechanics teachings, targeting the Magi Grail lines, targeting the Cathars, targeting all of our sacred Christos lineages in order to hijack the template of Mother to basically take over this body and the genocide. And this connects us to the Essenes, the Essene energies. And I do want to highlight this cross in the middle because none of these are just happen chance pictures. A cross is not just a cross. And the cross that they use in, say, Christianity for Jesus on the cross is a hijacked image. It's not meant to have the bottom, longer than the top. It's not meant to be like this crucifixion. It's actually a hijacking of a perfected 4 equal lengths cross. And that cross is the Eucharistic body. It is a larger template. It is a larger body. Our Eucharistic body starts to connect us into basically the larger structures of the cosmaya. And that'll be for another conversation. So within that, there's so much more we could probably dance in and talk about, but I hope that gives a little bit to start to think about, to start to maybe contemplate or even want to explore, is this idea that we have within us our own divine connection to the mother. The mother's not outside of us. She is at our core. And our Rasha body, so all the flame work doing, all the mantras, all of the symbols and the light language that you're working with and the yantras that you're working with, they are not without purpose. They're not just some, you know, maybe magical thing. You're literally, if you can keep remembering, and this is what I love about the womb chakra work, is that it's taking us into the womb of mother. What a great reminder that she is within us and we are within her. So as we connect more and more to the core, we are developing our connection to the blueprint. What we want to do is align our logos, align our consciousness to our highest crystal consciousness. Be the core star that we are. Know that I am the sacred son. I am the sacred son. I am the sacred son. Each of these things will start to have more and more meaning for you as you repeat them, as you say them. You will know what you are doing, and you will know that you are here in the dream. And even if it feels very stuck and very dense, it doesn't matter. You are the very catalyst as a flame body. Remember, the more you activate your flame body, you are helping to vaporize or liquidize, at least, if not vaporize, a lot of the stuck stuff that is in this creation so that it can free up the energy to be in that eternal dance again. So with so much love, you guys, thank you so much for letting me share that with you.